Welcome to the Ask Faleskini podcast. This is a special episode dedicated to Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, more specifically to MMA fight between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. This episode was recorded before the fight. I will explain why Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg MMA fight is wrong in so many ways. First, I would like to start with disclaimers. I admire both gentlemen. I admire their technical achievements and also what they have achieved in business. I would also like to state that I'm a huge fan of fighting sports, so much so that I've been training kickboxing for the last 3 decades. I would like to start and state that this fight poses an unnecessary additional risks to both of these gentlemen. I would like to say that due to traveling, long working hours, both CEOs are exposed to a lot of risk that are beyond the risk of average employee. Without getting involved in the fight, their life is really stressful, and there are so many people that depend on these two gentlemen. I would like also to state that there are health risks involved in every fight. The first risk is overtrained, or they can become overtrained when preparing for the fight. This is because of a lot of motivation. They're both motivated and focus-driven individuals. So overtrained should not be something that they cannot become, because they really have a lot of motivation for this fight. So training will be hard. And not just overtrained, that can be cured with the couple of days of rest. There are also possible injuries during the training. Fighting sports have, on top of all the injuries that you can get in a gym, fighting sports pose a risk also to sparring partners during the sparring and other preparations. Of course, on top of that, there can be fatigue because of the exhaustion of so much preparation for the fight. And after the fight, there are also fatigue, injuries of the fight, and in worst case scenarios, even death is possible. I would like to give another disclaimer. I sincerely hope that additional workout will benefit both involved and the fight will be without injuries, but that does not lower the factor risk of potential risk of injuries or even death. I would also like to state that any serious credit agency would immediately lower credit rating for the company because the management is exposed to this unnecessary risk. This is something that is considered foolish, and in both cases, both companies depend, or even in case of Elon Musk, even more companies depend on Elon Musk, and also Facebook and Instagram depend on Mark Zuckerberg. I would like to state that these are unnecessary risks, and that for sure credit rating should be lower if there would be any serious credit rating agency. I would also like to state that there is a risk with the regulators, because Security Exchange Commission should start a probe or investigation in this case, because this is clearly the fight is clearly a behavior that exposes shareholders to additional risk. And I believe that both of these gentlemen should have a vote of shareholders, or if they would have a supervision committee that should allow them to get involved in the fight. I don't think that they can individually decide whether they're going to fight or not, because if there is a negative consequence of the fight, all shareholders in the company will have to bear the consequences. I would also like to state that there are shareholders' risk involved. We don't know how the outcome of the fight is going to be. there are two possible outcomes, or maybe even three. I don't believe that the outcome where both people lose or both people win, however you want to call it, is possible. So in any case, one of these two gentlemen will be burned, and that believes that he will go from hero that is today to zero or less hero. And this can cause image defamation to the company, and then this can lower their social status and respect. And they use that to guide their companies. I would also like to state that lack of focus on the business during preparation phase for the fight will also negatively or potentially negatively influence all the shareholders. On top of that, there are also potential absence that will be necessary there is potential absence that is necessary because they will have to first prepare for the fight, and then they will have to do the fight, and then there is also recovery phase. And on top of that, there is also potential injury or even death that can make one or both of these gentlemen unable to work. So if there's an injury or death, and the companies that so heavily depend on their first person will suffer a huge consequence if something goes wrong. So that is an unnecessary risk. I would also like to stress that there are negative social impact of this fight. Both gentlemen are respected members of US society with maximum reach on each of their social media platforms. So their influence is practically global right now. I would like to state that the fight does hint at that there is a solution to a problem with violence. And I would like to state that violence is only necessary when it's completely impossible to avoid it. This fight is unnecessary violence, and even if you win the fight, you don't get other person's company, you don't get anything, you just get a fame. So this is fight is basically for nothing, for fame, for your ego, not to any benefit that you would get additional resources. And if you go to war, we all know that the additional resources are the only object of any war. The wars that start for ego problem or for any similar things that do not include getting additional resources are doomed to failure. Assuming additional risk for the companies that are dependable on these two individuals is not acceptable and should not be acceptable. It potentially put many of really highly educated, well-versed, and highly productive people in jeopardy. Their jobs or even their economic existence could potentially be in danger if the fight does not go according to the plan. I would like to state that bread and circuses, as I would call this action, or it was called in Rome, it indicates the total collapse of the society. And the people with such an influence as Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk should avoid pushing society towards collapse. I would also like to state that this fight sets bad example for average people and especially for business people that are even more influential in the society, since there will be a nudge to go and fight now instead of solving problems in a different way. There will be an so-called gods for glory, and not thinking about how problems can be solved in other civilized manners. So I would like to end this episode by stating that it is morally wrong to get engaged in additional risks, because we know that in economy, Risk is the only way to achieve profit. So because of this fight, there will be no additional profit for either Facebook or for Tesla. So if it's unnecessary, why would you go and do it? And I would like to hear your comments and your suggestions and your point of view in the comment below. Thank you.